China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the east, in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. They're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to check out the latest about Joe Biden's connection to China. This is a story that has been developing for quite some time, but now with him running for president, I think it bears all the more necessity that we take a closer look in. We talk about what Q said about this in the past and how important it really is. So you guys want to stick around and check it out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig, and I always like to begin by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, please come here on the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, and make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Also, hit the like button if you guys like this video and want to see me make more. So, with that being said, here's where we were at. The latest Q post, of course, was May 2nd, and we're at May 7th now, and it looks like we're going to be basically watching a lot more just happen in the news rather than get it here on the boards, because everything is actually falling into place. But we still have to cover the news. The mainstream media refuses to, and that's why you guys tune in here to watch this channel. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is this story that's developing, which I've been covering for quite some time. I remember very specifically doing reports on this story on this channel here a long time ago. Some of those videos may not exist anymore. That's a whole nother story. But I was doing this reporting for quite some time, and I can tell you right now, there is an incredible story here about Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, and his connections to China, and how that all relates back to what we've talked about here on the Q boards for quite some time. So let's just get right into it. So before we read some excerpts from this actual story that was just reported by The Intercept, by Lee Fang here, we're going to look back at the Q posts that talk about Biden. And every time Q's mentioned Biden, he's mentioned China. And there's a very, very specific reason for that. And it has a lot to do, or basically everything to do with the story that we're going to be talking about here later. But first, this was a post we got from Q back in 2018, March. So this was over a year ago now. And it says, how bad is the corruption? And it talks about all of the different individuals and their positions that were complicit or in on this Russia collusion hoax. And this was giving us a good idea of the people, and not just the Russia collusion hoax. We're going back to things like Fast and Furious, Uranium One, the Hillary Clinton email investigation, everything you can imagine. So, of course, it says here, you have the number one, and the number one's twice. So it's the past and present. So you're thinking people who came before and then people who came after. So, of course, it talks about the former and present at the time director of the FBI, and then the second in charge, plus 29 people. The former and current head of the DOJ at that time, which was like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch, and then the second in charge too, plus 18. State Department, number one and number two, or number one and number one. So the former and the present for the Obama administration, which was Kerry, and who could forget our most favorite Secretary of State of all time, Hillary Clinton, plus 41 out of the State Department. Talking about how removal is the least of their problems, especially given what they did with this whole Russia thing. And it was all projection. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that everything that we've been told about the Russia connection between President Trump, if you just switch President Trump's name out with Obama and Hillary, you basically have you have enough evidence to go, especially if you look at Uranium One and what the Ukrainians are coming out with now. So there's just an incredible amount of information that's showing that these individuals are responsible for some pretty bad stuff, and then they project it on us, which is a very Machiavellian thing to do. Talking about the Twitter bots that Google operated, were not Russia. And then it says slant, Biden, China, big development, traders everywhere, America for sale. What could they be referring to? Well, they probably are referring to what is mentioned inside of this article, the Q group here. And then you can also see, again here, Biden is connected to China directly by Q. And we'll kind of skip through because there's a lot to unpack in this one. But we'll skip up here. And this was before the midterms, of course. So this post was on March 27th of 2018. And it was saying current censorship all relates to push for power, midterms, last stand, election fraud, cases open, DOJ many, which we are that I think if you guys look, go Google election fraud and then check the news and just see the amount of like mayors and councilmen and just across the country who are being indicted right now for election fraud. And that's why it's really important. I want to make a really quick point to everyone out there listening. If you are currently in your community and you're upset with the way things are going and you are wanting to change it, I encourage you all to go run for your local office and put yourselves in the positions of power so that these people can't dictate to us and steal our elections and ruin our country. So that's just a little PSA. Go out and run for office if you're really upset. I'm going to be doing some work on that issue coming up here in the run up to the 2020 election. So you guys want to stick around and check that out. But it talks about following the family, following resignations. It says Biden, China, very important marker. And it says who made it public, who really made it public, who is making it all public. We are the gatekeepers of all. By all, we mean all information. And that's talking about Q. And then it talks about uranium one to Canada, EU, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Pakistan. And then it talks, of course, about the $700 billion military budget and all that. So what you have to remember, though, is that in these mentions of Biden here, which there aren't many, of course, there's just those two that I can really locate right now. But in those mentions, you have to remember that what you're being shown is this story that's now being broken. So when we say that we're tomorrow's news today and all that stuff, it's kind of incredibly true and accurate because these stories are coming out one by one. And I can tell you right now that on my end, I've known about this story for a while. So first of all, the beginning of this story talks about this group that does an app. It's called Face Plus Plus, and it's a division of MEVG, who's one of their primary investors is Alibaba Group, who's directly connected to Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, because he was one of the prominent investors in all of these companies that we're mentioning here, this Face Plus Plus and MEVG, or MEGVII. And what this talks about is that the Human Rights Watch released a troubling report that was documenting how this Chinese government or this Chinese app for your phone was being used to basically target the Uyghur Muslims in the western provinces of China, which are typically more Muslim and less Chinese, and that there's been this huge crackdown on basically any kind of religion in Western China, especially the autonomous region of where the Uyghurs are out there, which is not really autonomous, of course. And this is a very, very troubling thing. It's the province of Zhejiang. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. But these minority Muslims are being targeted by the Chinese Communist government because they're just putting out draconian policies to go ahead and try to stop any uprising of terrorism inside their own country. So, of course, this company has direct ties to Hunter Biden, and that's where the story begins. But where it really begins is right down here. And in order to understand this, you also have to understand this Bohai Harvest company, who is one of the primaries that's being run by Biden's son. He's probably listed as one of the primary individuals in charge there, and it's Bohai Harvest, which is a directly connected to the Bank of China, operated in China, and there's a lot to unpack there. But just suffice it to say that this is a very big company in China that is being funded and run by the family members of Joe Biden, and there's some very suspicious timing on how everything got started. So this is talking about how it all became that and who was in it together. So don't forget, too, that one of the things of this story that people throw out the window a lot is that Hunter Biden's actually working at a company with the former Secretary of State's son or stepson, Christopher Heinz. Now, John Kerry's wife is the Heinz heiress. You guys know Heinz ketchup? So and I did a whole video on this guy, Devin Archer, too. So you have Devin Archer, you have Christopher Hines, you have Hunter Biden all working together right now to at this company, which was called Rosemont Seneca. And Rosemont Seneca was basically an investment firm that was a part of all of this. And we're going to read about it. I'm just going to start reading this to you right now. So remember, they're all in this company together. It says, in 2014, the partners began setting up operations in China. The RS in Bohai Harvest, RST, stands for Rosemont Seneca, and the T stands for Thornton Group. The latter group is an international consulting firm based in Massachusetts that was founded by James Bolger, the son of the longtime Kerry ally and former Massachusetts State Senate President William Bolger. It says the company, according to the Wall Street Journal, planned to raise $1.5 billion, taking advantage of Shanghai's free enterprise zone to convert yuan to dollars to be invested in foreign companies. Business registration filings in China list Hunter Biden, Schwerin, and James Bolger as key officials at Bohai Harvest. Last year, author Peter Schweitzer criticized the timing of Bohai Harvest's launch, claiming that the exclusive deal coincided with negotiations between then Vice President Joe Biden and the Chinese government. So like I said before, what you guys saw in the beginning of the video was Joe Biden admitting that, you know, he knows very well all about the dispute in the South China Sea and what their territorial claim has expanded to. Now, at the same time that Joe Biden was over there negotiating this claim with them, and basically, China got what they wanted. They have their 9-dash line that outlines that they own most of the South China Sea. But they got what they wanted to a degree. I'm not sure that we fully recognize it, but we definitely stood down and let them build military bases in the middle of it. So I don't know what you call that. But what happened here was right after Joe Biden left China, or went to China, to negotiate these things. Right after that, somehow magically, his son got over $1 billion in financing from the Chinese state bank. I think it was HSBC, but I'm not sure. And this is just laughable. Talk about pay for play, right? So, and then it says on Wednesday, the New York Times raised similar concerns with the involvement of Hunter Biden and Ukrainian energy company Burisma Holdings, which added the vice president's son to the company board in 2014. Rosemont Seneca financial filings made public through a separate fraud investigation in Archer. And this was another thing. This guy, and I reported on this a while ago, this guy, Devin Archer, was actually basically being investigated, and he was brought to trial, I believe. I'm not sure if he settled out or ended up getting I think he was actually convicted, but I have to go check that out. I'm going off of memory with this Devin Archer stuff, but basically he's one of their fraudster partners who was working, and apparently, according to a tribe that he had basically embezzled money out of, that they wanted to take him to court, and it was just this whole thing. And the story gets even worse because I'm just going to keep reading here. It says it revealed that the energy company paid Hunter Biden as much as $50,000 per month at a time when the U.S. was closely involved in Ukraine's response to Russian aggression in the region. And of course, don't forget that 2014 is right after what we had go down with the Uranium One deal. And of course, what we have is this incredible influence in the Ukrainian government with these investigations that are being reopened. You know, Joe Biden actually called for one of the prosecutors, I think it was like the head prosecutor who was looking into or investigating him in Ukraine. He demanded that he get fired. Well, of course he would, because he's trying to cover his tracks. It says, for his part, Joe Biden has served long friendly voice for U.S.-China relations, even before his son's investment. The elder Biden helped lead Democratic support to passing permanent national trade relations, So you guys can read this article if you want in its entirety. But the outline, in my opinion, comes down to a few things. First of all, you have this Hunter Biden guy who's, to me, pretty, I don't know, weird guy, man. He apparently his brother passed away, and then he started dating his brother's widowed wife, and now he broke up with her. It's just, okay. Well, that's strange. But that aside, the fact that he's working in Ukraine, that he's working in China, making billions of dollars while his dad's running around as the vice president of the country, and especially the timing of the way that the money was brought in and who may or may not have been involved. We all know what the Chinese government does. I hate to say it, I hate to burst your bubble, but the Chinese government is all about bribery, is all about pay for play. That's how they run that country. In case you guys didn't know, China's basically run off of corruption and fraud. I mean, look at how they developed their industries using stolen IP, intellectual property from the United States and other countries. And then you just take that and you, trust me, I study China all the time. So there's just a lot of things that are wrong with the Chinese Communist Party that we as Americans, thankfully, because we have the First Amendment, have the right to say, right? At least I thought. Anyway, the next story I want to talk about is Pope Francis. Since we're going through the news here, Pope Francis has apparently demanded for a supranational government to defeat global warming and protect migrants. Wow. So if this doesn't make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, I'm not sure what will. This is basically the Pope calling for the New World Order, and it's pretty much outlined pretty clearly in Revelation how this all gets going. Next thing you know, we're going to have the mark of the beast in order to buy and sell, and we're going to be, which is almost kind of happening to a degree, but it always has been happening to one degree or another. It just continues to get more and more evil, in my opinion, or sinister, I should say, the way that this all continues to go. And you have the leaders of these religions calling for a consolidation of power. Why would they do that? I'm very much interested to find out why he would say that. Here's a quote from Pope Francis. He says, when a supranational common good is clearly identified, there is need for a special legally constituted authority capable of facilitating its implementation. Now, what that really means is that once we all agree to become globalists, then we're going to need a specially legally constituted authority, aka a world government, which is going to be fully armed and capable of facilitating its implementation, i.e., it is able to force you to do things that you would not otherwise do. And that in and of itself is kind of completely terrifying. You guys can read this whole article if you want, but it just is an incredible state that we have come to, where the globalists and these people like the Pope and others are just coming out and saying, well, we need to be globally. And it's like, did the Pope not read Revelation? I mean, he had to have read it. I mean, it's just, I don't even know. So then you have to ask yourself, if he read it and he's still calling for this global governing system, which, I mean, obviously we know there's so much evil out here. We know what it's going to devolve into. I mean, we have an outline in the good book that tells us exactly how this all goes. So yeah, I thought I'd share that story with you guys. And I want to talk about the times that we've heard from Q about Pope. Of course, the one here was P equals Pope, because they were having this conversation about whether it was P equals Payseur or if it equals Pope. And to that, this was back in April of 2018. Q actually responded to this person who said P equals Pope, saying the Pope will have will be having a terrible May. Now, Q never said which May it was going to be, whether it was going to be that May or this May or next May. But I don't think things are going too good for the Pope right now, especially given the way these scandals keep just coming out about the church and the way that they've covered up some of these crimes. It's just, to me, that is the least Christian thing I've ever heard of in my life, where you have officials inside of a organization that's meant to protect people, protecting the predators. That, to me, is disturbing. But it says those who backed him will be pushed into the light, dark to light truth. And yeah, that's what we're seeing right now. Here's a fascinating one where it has this picture of an owl. It says Guardian P. It says Guardian of the Pope, personal, Q. So everybody knows Bohemian Grove. Everyone knows the statue of Moloch that they all do the cremation of care ceremony at, and they get together in the woods and dress up and do an effigy of a sacrifice, and it's like just really weird stuff that the elite are all about, because they're all about cultism. And I really think I've figured it out. I think that because God is omnipotent in the Bible and in all religions, really, these evil people who exist and who are really powerful, they have to have these different structures for control. And one of the best ways to do it, like, it's secret societies, cults, that kind of stuff. And that's what ends up happening. And that's what you're seeing right now with a organization like Bohemian Grove, for just one example of many. And I think those are the people that may be pulling some strings that we don't even know about with certain individuals. And I'll just leave that there for you guys to consider. Of course, and there's a couple others, but more overly, and then Q gave us this one back in September, this article, which was from Breitbart, talking about how Pope Francis compared Vatican whistleblower to Satan, which to me is I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, the guy came forward and is exposing truths about how nobody's really taking anything seriously, and that there's an actual problem inside the church with these. Gosh, I'm sorry for all these stupid ads. There's a problem with all these people who are covering up for the crimes of others. So that was really what that was all about, and I just thought I'd bring that little doozy up. Now, another thing real quick is the crisis at the border. We are really having a crisis on the border. I mean, we're having tens of thousands of people arrested every day at our border, our southern border, and it's really becoming quite pronounced. Now, in a little New Mexico city, or little New Mexico town there near Alamogordo, they're basically saying they're overrun. And this is just one of probably, at this point, dozens of examples of smaller border towns that are not faring well, and that's because there's a push at our border to get into this country. Now, whatever you guys want to say about it, it's a humanitarian thing, it's this or it's that. You're not allowed to cross our border illegally, and you can't come here by the thousands, tens of thousands, and expect our country to just foot the bill for everything. I mean, you have to be pragmatic at some point and say, look, this is this is the untenable cost. We cannot manage to keep leaking money out, and then also having the complete cultural clash of bringing in these third world populations, not to mention the crime and the disease and the complete lack of any type of control of our borders, as in who comes in and who comes out, especially given, you'd think people, especially on the left and the right, would be very concerned. You think about back to 9/11 and everything. People, yeah, of course people can come in here legally, but at the same time, wouldn't you want to be in control of who comes here and when they're able to actually, get through, to be able to have some chance of stopping another terrible attack or tragedy? I'm just throwing that out there because I think it's a reasonable thing to say. Another quick story here: refusing to turn over Trump tax returns. Now, basically what happened today was Steve Mnuchin at the Department of Treasury basically told Congress, the House members who were demanding to see President Trump's tax returns, that they couldn't see them, that he wasn't going to turn them over because he didn't think there was any legal legislative precedent for oversight or anything to warrant them having those documents. So I thought that was a very bold move, but now, of course, they're going to take this, I'm sure, all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's certainly something that we should be monitoring and keeping an eye on. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I don't know if you can tell, I did get a new mic, and I'm hoping the sound quality is a little bit better. I'm basically building out a whole new studio here, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So we're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff coming up here, but that's really where I'm going to go ahead and leave. A few things that I want to mention before I go. Obviously, a great way to help the channels to come here. Click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications and watch these videos. Share them on your social media and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below because I want to hear what you guys have to think. Also, hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see more. Of course, you can help the channel another way by coming to patreon.com, patreon.com/justinformtalk. And there'll be a link in the description. You come here, click this button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation. You set it and forget it, and know that you're helping create content here on this channel. And yeah, I really appreciate all your help and support. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to do that. It's a one-time donation. You just come here. You can do it one time and anonymously. Helps the channel out big time. Also, don't forget to check me out on Twitter, @JustinFormU on Twitter. That's a cool way you can come find me. And, of course, you can come find me over here on justinformednews.com, which is, of course, the official website for Just Informed Talk. And you get links to different Q stuff, links to different news websites, news articles breaking, and, of course, you get the latest videos from the channel here. So it's just a good tool for you guys to go check out if you are interested. I encourage everyone to go over there. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. So for today's episode, I I have this piece of scripture I want to share with you, and it's Psalm 93, and it talks about God's eternal reign. I thought it was just a profound verse I wanted to share. It says, "The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed, enveloped in strength. The world is firmly established. It cannot be shaken. Your throne has been established from the beginning. You are from eternity. The floods have lifted up, Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their pounding waves. Greater than the roar of many waters, the mighty breakers of the sea. The Lord on high is majestic. Lord, your testimonies are completely reliable. Holiness is the beauty of your house for all the days to come." And, I wanted to share that because it may not sound too, profoundly accurate, even though it is, to somebody who's not really, paying attention. But what it's talking about is the strength and mighty and overwhelming power and awesomeness of the ocean is a great way to look and see God. Is that God is this overwhelming power that can his light can and grace can just wash over you, and you are not in control. Once you realize that, then you realize there's majesty there. But that's why we also fear the Lord. That's why we also put our lives to God, and learn more and study the teachings through the Bible and what we can bring into this world and pass on to our fellow men and women, brothers and sisters. So that to me is just a cool verse that talks about how God is always going to be there. And it also reminds me of the fact that we're called to remember that God is great, and that greatness is something to be both revered and to be feared and to be admired and to be praised and all of these things at once. It's not easy. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope that message resonates with you, and I hope you guys know that God loves you and that you are saved and that you're only one prayer away from reopening that conversation. God's waiting for you to open that conversation up right now. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode. Again, come here, click the big red subscribe button if you haven't already. Now's a great time to do it. And hit that thumbs up button, the like button, if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's going to be it for me, though. I want to say thank you for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.